They keep sending me irresponsible tax breaks for special interests and billionaires without showing Arizonans how they're going to pay for that. And then they said, we're not going to do a Prop 123 renewal.
She basically wanted us to balance the budget off of a Prop 123, something that would have to pass later. We said that was irresponsible. And so she threw a temper tantrum and walked away from budget negotiations.
And we have a standoff at the state capitol. Republican leaders want to extend tax cuts. Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs wants to boost school funding. So how long will Governor Hobbs hold out to get what she wants? Governor Katie Hobbs joins us now on Sunday Square Off, this edition of Sunday Square Off on streaming. Good to see you again. You've announced you are not going to sign any bills at all until Republicans bring a budget to you. What impact does that have at the Capitol?
It means that legislative action, unless they want whatever they send to me vetoed, comes to a standstill. I think the budget is the most important job that Arizonans send us to the Capitol to accomplish. I put my budget out 90 some days ago at the beginning of session, and all I've heard from Republican leadership at the legislature is, we don't like this, but they won't tell me what they do like. They sent me, as you heard in the clip, an irresponsible tax break for billionaires and special interests without showing how they want to pay for that. My budget shows how we're going to pay for the tax cuts that I proposed. I'm willing to talk about other tax cuts, but we have to have a plan of how that's going to be paid for. And so far, Republicans have refused to show that plan.
I've presented it as extending tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, versus your strong desire to put Prop 123 on the ballot. Do I have that right?
I don't think it's an either or. I said from day one, we can talk about these extended tax cuts, but we have to do it in the context of budget negotiations so we know how we're going to pay for that.
And what about Prop 123? It's kind of on life support. It gets an annual about $300 million appropriation for schools, K-12 schools, but there's a long-held goal to extend it, to make provide more money to schools.
Right.
Is that kind of a must-have for you in this budget, a vote on that?
Well, if you remember back to when voters passed Prop 123, it was to settle a long-standing lawsuit about shortfalls in school funding. When that was passed, we knew it would expire. And so we're at that point now. We have this once-in-a-decade opportunity to extend that funding without raising taxes on Arizonans, funding that's needed. In my budget this year, we backfilled that funding with general fund, but I don't think we can afford to do that in perpetuity. And if we don't meet the obligations of that lawsuit, we'll be right back where we started.
Is it a must-have for you?
It is not just about me and what I want. This is something that Arizonans have shown support for repeatedly, for funding public education. They've even voted to tax themselves to do that. I'm not suggesting we do that. This is an opportunity to do that without that. Our schools need this funding, especially when you look at how public school funding is being drained through unaccountable ESAs, and Republicans refuse to put any guardrails there.
Warren Peterson, the Senate president who we heard from in that soundbite, says it's irresponsible to base a budget on a vote that would have to take place on Prop 123 to extend it in November. This budget has to be approved by July 1st. Isn't he right? How can you budget for something that has not yet happened?
Well, we've done this before, and we would build contingencies into the budget, obviously. But I think what this means is that it is incumbent on us to come up with a plan that voters will approve. And voters support public education funding. They have time and again. And so I believe if we get the right proposal to voters, they will pass it. And if that's not the case, then we come back and shift our priorities.
What about the tax cuts? This past tax year, we all had the Trump tax cuts on our tax forms.
Yep.
We filled them out and all done. There was a fight early on, no fight. It sounds like you want to get rid of a piece of those tax cuts. Am I right?
Well, my proposal prioritizes middle-class tax cuts. I said from day one when I introduced that proposal, we can talk about the other tax cuts. we have to figure out how to pay for that. It comes with a much bigger price tag.
So, but is there, in your view, is there a possibility that the tax cuts that small businesses received this year and others could go away next year?
I think that we will come to a negotiated solution that implements all of the tax cuts. But I think it's irresponsible to sign the bill that they sent to me that does that twice without showing how we're going to pay for it.
All the tax cuts would cost about $400 million, correct?
Yeah.
Where's that money coming from?
That's a very good question, and something we need to get back to the negotiating table to figure out.
Okay. Want to move on to other news of the week.
Yeah.
The Eric Swalwell scandal has gripped the nation's capital. Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego says he, quote, had no knowledge of predatory behavior, sexual assault, or harassment by his best friend, now former Congressman Eric Swalwell. Do you accept Senator Gallego's explanation for why he didn't know about Swalwell's alleged predatory behavior?
Well, those are really questions for the senator. I will say that as a social worker who spent a big part of my career working with victims of domestic violence, I absolutely take any allegations of sexual assault seriously and believe that any perpetrator, no matter who they are, needs to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
Do you accept Senator Gallego's explanation for why he didn't know about what his best friend was doing?
I don't think it's on me to accept it. It's on the voters. And again, these questions need to go back to the senator.
So you're not going to answer that question?
I support survivors, and I am glad there's going to be some accountability.
Let's talk about SNAP benefits. ProPublica reported that more than 400,000 Arizonans have lost their SNAP benefits since July, the largest decline in the nation by a very wide margin. That's nearly half the state's participants, about 180,000 kids. How did that happen?
Well, back when H.R. 1 was passed that implemented these cuts, or that instituted these cuts, those were the projections. So the numbers we're seeing right now are not off from what we projected in terms of the population in Arizona that would lose benefits. I can't speak to why our numbers look different than other states, but this is a direct result of politicians in Washington prioritizing tax cuts for billionaires over people who are hungry.
But fingers are being pointed at DES, Department of Economic Security, which administers the program, saying they're overwhelmed right now by the new requirements.
Right. Well, and this is also not new information. The department has been understaffed for the better part of this last year because of federal cuts to programs that DES administers that impacted staffing levels and their ability to implement more stringent administrative guidelines. And that is directly impacting the people they serve. We're doing everything we can to alleviate some of that congestion and backlog at DES. I directed $7 million there earlier this year, but they're being very hard hit by many federal cuts.
And looming ahead are Medicaid cuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same kind of thing, requirements.
Yeah.
Is Arizona up to managing that?
We are doing everything we can, preparing for the Medicaid cut implementation, and really focusing on how we make sure that Arizonans are ready for the increased eligibility timeframes, the additional paperwork they have to do more often, so that everyone who's eligible is able to stay on benefits. And that doesn't include just our access department, our Medicaid department, but also providers in the community that are involved in that process as well.
I want to put a timestamp of Friday. We're talking Friday morning on this next question. President Trump is going to be in Phoenix at an event sponsored by Turning Point USA. Turning Point, Republican lawmakers wanted you to approve renaming the Loop 202 freeway as the Charlie Kirk Freeway. Republicans accuse you of lying about why you vetoed the bill. Can you clarify why you vetoed it?
This is just another round of ridiculous political games, and I think, unfortunately, just really politicizing what was a tragic assassination and death of Charlie Kirk. I'm allowed to have more than one reason for vetoing a bill. I thought that just like the license plate bill that they sent me, this injects politics into something that shouldn't be a political process by renaming the freeway or having a Charlie Kirk license plate. But I also heard concerns from family members of former Congressman Ed Pastor about the freeway, and they were opposed to it. They've spoken publicly about that. I'm allowed to have more than one reason for not supporting legislation.
So both those reasons were in play.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Katie Hobbs, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.